Although I did do a toe with you on the floor.
First thing you're going to do is the down break, okay, for the table. So if you have a mayo stand, we can get mayo stand covers, but what we have is this. So when you open it, and then you're opening something sterile, do you guys see this little tab?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Your thumb goes under the tab, and then you come this way. So you're like unwrapping a gift. You're gonna switch hands. This little tab comes around, and you see you're kind of collecting it behind you. Everybody watching that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then same thing, this little guy here. Now, this is sterile. Okay. So when you hit the ground with the back of it, because we're gonna try and dress this, obviously the back is no longer sterile. So what we're gonna try and do is open this, and as long as you don't touch the dark blue, we're on the back of the drape. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can kind of open this out like so, okay? And the same thing, now you can grab these little corners, and you should be able to kind of pull it open. Do you see? Then you're gonna come around to the other side and do the same. And as long as you're on the back of the drape, because that's not gonna be sterile anymore, because it's on the table, now you have a sterile field. Sterile field means that anything that's dark blue, you don't touch. You dig? Okay, so then for the purpose of what we're doing, usually you're gonna pop me a gown as well. So once you get the actual package open, it's the same thing. You guys all see the little tab again? Right? So it's the same idea. You're gonna kind of unwrap it like a little gift, okay? Now, this is sterile, where my hand is not. So you can literally set it on the table. See? Okay, and so as long as you're kind of always touching this, you're okay. And then when you're popping instruments and things, the only exception here to what we do in the sterile field is this little guy, because we don't have like bowls, right? So when you're opening this, technically everything inside here is sterile, so you can drop these here, and then if you just put this on the corner, then I know just this corner is no longer sterile, right? So I can be all up in this space and not be bothering anything. And then when it comes to popping instruments, the same idea, the inside of the package is sterile. So as you're opening it, you're peeling away, you see? Yeah. So when you get to this point, don't touch the inside, even if it starts to rip, you tip, right? And then this goes away, right? Does that make sense? Pretty easy, right? And then it's a matter of just kind of getting in the habit of doing all of that. And once it touches the blue, you can't touch it anymore. If the package rips or does something weird, which this was of course not going to do, you can kind of, oh crap, and then just kind of just shake it out. The other thing you'll notice is I'm relatively high above the table. We're not really close, right? The sterile rule is, 6 inches above the table is technically still considered sterile. So when you're dropping things onto it, you've got to be kind of high up. And then anything kind of waist and below. So technically down here, not really sterile field anymore, okay? Because technically below my waist in the gown, so my shoulders to my waist is sterile, okay? So my back is okay to touch, for example, if you need to get down something weird in my leg or whatever, that's okay too. Okay? I don't need those ones. And then when I'm...
So I have a question. You always put a specimen in the cup, but it's not sterile, so we keep it on our table or our side. That's why I like 2 tables in a room, and then we can just hold it for you and you'll put the toe in.
Same thing with this. This is the spot drape. And so this has to go on the table, and a lot of times when you catch them, you're here, and then you flip over. Okay? As long as your hands are on the back of the package, you're sterile, right? And then when you guys are helping me, like a lot of times you'll see me, oh, I need to dry off or whatever. Like I'll grab from here, because the inside here, right? And then you see me kind of do this. Yeah. So if you're gonna tie me up, you're gonna grab the inside of the shoulder, inside of the shoulder, right? On the light blue, right? So remember the light blue rule? But now you're on my back, so you're not sterile anymore. So you can grab the white if you need to. And then the inside of this shoulder, same thing. Do you see the little Velcro tab? Mm-hmm. So the idea is that once you're on my back, I can keep my hands here and I'm clean.
Yeah.
Right? You get that? Now it's the inside.
That's the tricky part, is the waist one.
Right, you see that one there, inside? Okay, and then there's one on this side. Not my outside one, but yeah. You see that little string? It should be on the outside, on the back.
Yeah.
You see it? Those are what tie, okay? If you get, and usually you start at the top and then go to the back. Okay, and then
you do your turn.
Then I put my gloves on or whatever. And then same thing, the blue is sterile. So if I hand this to you, you only touch the white.
Yep.
Okay, don't let go. Oh crap, it dropped and we touched it. Oh, now what do I do? Okay, now this is no longer sterile, so you can touch the very bottom of that.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop this one for you. Over here, you're gonna take it. Don't touch me. Great, and then you tie.
Okay.
Okay? Otherwise, all you have to do is hang on to the white card, I do my spin and tie.
Yeah.
Right? But if you get into trouble, something happens, as long as you only touch the bottom and I hand you this, we're still in a safe space.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we don't have to tie in the front, okay? And then same thing pouring the fluid in that. It's that 6 inches above rule. You know, once you pop it, the inside of the bottle is sterile. So as long as you're kind of pouring like so, and then traditionally you don't drain the bottle, okay? You bring it up. You don't necessarily have to recap it, but you can. But theoretically, we shouldn't really reuse, because now we've opened it, right?
You
What we're
usually
doing-
use an entire bottle, don't you?
I flush it out again. It doesn't really bother me too much. You're getting into like the gray area of the technicalities. But does that make sense how you open that? If I refold, because I think the big one where we get stuck is the table drape.
Yeah.
If I refold it, do you guys want to take a try?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because I think that's probably the most useful thing. But the other thing is, like I said, that 6 inches-ish above.
And you don't ever want us draping the patient with the circle drape. You'll do that, correct?
Yeah,
Like
because
the-
what'll happen if we want for setup for me, and I imagine the others wouldn't mind, you can wash, and then you can take the povidone iodine sticks, and you can actually kind of pre-prep the area. When you're doing that, you start with the surgical site. Okay, so if we're doing a toe, and if you know that we're going to be amping the tip of a toe, you start prepping here and then work your way down. Now, if it's infected and gross and dirty, sometimes you start and then you end. Okay.
Do you want it?
But
Do
in
you usually
general-
use all the sticks that are in there?
I do.
Okay.
And with the circle drape, you're gonna, if it's like a second toe, you've gotta prep 2, 3, and 4, and sometimes a little bit of 1, and come down on it, because it's all of that's gonna be exposed, right? So if you wanna do that once, and then I can re-prep again, usually after I get the drape on or whatever, to make sure that we're happy. Does that make sense?
And then usually while she's, like after she gets started, we usually rip it open. Because she does it again, like she said, and then we'll just hand it to her and she'll pull them out. And she'll still be sterile.
And dressings are the same way. So sticky dressings that you can't get, that can't dump, you open them and then I can reach in because that's sterile and grab, so like Xeroform and Adaptic, okay? But the rest of it you gotta pop kind of into area. And just, I think the biggest mistake I see, and if you haven't worked in sterile field, how would you know, right? It's just this like complete disrespect for the bleed zone. But if you get in the habit, it doesn't feel so aggressive. So where did this in the middle? I think it's here. Let's see, because the trick is really just kind of, like I said, respecting the dark blue. That's in general why the OR kind of lives in this color, is because then it's a really universal signal that this is sterile field. And don't let me come at you, because sometimes I forget. And then, you know, I'm walking and you're like, don't touch me. That's happened more than once, okay? Does that make sense? Do you guys have questions? I mean, it's relatively simple, right? It's just a matter of practice more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to keep in mind is, like, when she's doing it, I think we've only had one time where we've dropped a tool.
Yeah.
Leave it. Don't go trying to pick shit up at her feet.
Yeah, it's gross.
But know that it's there, because then we pick it up after she's done with the whole thing.
Because it's easy to bump into the table when you're
Yeah.
running over to get something right by it.
And also, usually it's bloody and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and like we're not doing, like this is not an OR, right? We're not doing counts.
No.
So it's not like we're collecting sutures and things for count. But, yeah,
Do you want us to open and pop the suture on your
Yeah, I grabbed
one of these too?
Yeah, it's kind of getting used to like what you need, like.
So I did try to put everything that we need in this little toolbox. And so when she says, hey, we're gonna take this toe today, my hope is that all we have to do is grab the the toolbox, and then this has the dressings in the bottom and the drapes in the top. So we just grab these two things which are in the main med room. But we also have to get a consent form from Wendy.
Good consent forms,
And
labels.
print out the labels.
Yeah.
gotta remember how this folds. It's like folding up on a map.
We can
And-
make sure a consent form gets done, but technically Hronek has to, or the provider has to do the actual consent.
Yeah.
But we
I'll
could
go
be
grab
like,
it.
hey, consent form, or you know.
Yeah.
Um,
But you can fill it out. If
yeah,
you've been
we
standing
can
in the
fill
room
it
with me
out.
and you heard me say, oh, we're gonna do it.
Yeah, we could get
Do you
another
want
one.
Well,
It's
I
the second
can
one.
get- I think I can
There,
get to the
Heather?
most point.
What?
Do you want to put a consent form or two in the top of that box?
Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea. Huh.
I mean, you could, you know.
You have to go over and get stickers anyway.
Yeah.
From when you.
Everything
Yeah,
has
so it's
to
got
be
sixes.
labeled.
Several
You
And
guys-
then I
stickers.
I print out 2 labels. One I label as a culture, and the second one I label as a specimen. Specimen I put on the cup. The culture I put on the culture tube.
And specimen, the cup cannot tube that down.
Right.
You
Yeah.
have to walk that down.
I mean,
a
and
little
that's the other thing. Technically, you're not
Yeah.
supposed to set it down either without the label
Label.
Yeah.
because it's a.
Chain of evidence.
Yeah.
So hopefully.
So if you have the labels first, you have to hold the cup so she can pop the thing into it. Lid on and
Well, I
label if you
kind
don't
of,
already
like
label it.
while the patient's getting numb, I'll go print out a label really quick.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'll
That's
get all
reasonable.
this. We can drop the lidocaine for her. Drop 3 to 5
It'd
mils.
be nice if we could just print them in the rooms.
Oh yeah.
It would be.
You know, on
And
the
I've tried to
floors,
do
it's
that, but
nice
it
that-
says
I've
there's
tried,
no
but it's
signal.
like too far.
Yeah,
I think
it's
I've
too
tried
far.
to even take it to a closer room.
Yeah.
We
But
could
that's
at the
something
old
you could
clinic.
take
We
to-
could.
We could.
Somebody else that can do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Trina. Is Trina here or did she leave to get food?
Well, wouldn't we have to
It
get
should be getting
printers
None of us
for
know what's
everyone?
going on. Oh, that's right. I gotta document my check-in with Vanessa yesterday.
Okay, I'm gonna stop.